Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to share some of yours. I am thrilled today to have my friend Anisa Khandwalla on with me today. Thank you for being here. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Hi, I'm so glad you had me. So I'm Anisa Khandwalla. This is my ninth year in education. I graduated from Texas A&M in 2010,
Woo!
and I took a year. Whoop, yes, of course. I took a year to sub and figure out where I wanted to go. We lived in College Station with my brother, but my family lived in Houston, and I knew I wanted to move back home, so it was kind of a transition year for me.
Yeah.
I subbed for a little while in College Station in January and moved to Houston, and I subbed for a little bit in Katy and Fort Bend in the public school, and then I found an Islamic school. And I subbed for them for a little while, and they're like, hey, can you join us? So I did a demo lesson, and I started teaching third grade um, for 2 years there. And then I went to a charter school. I realized that while I love the little kids, they're a little bit needier than I'm prepared for. And so I moved up to middle school. So it was like eighth grade was where I went. I taught seventh and eighth grade for 2 years. And then I moved to a public school in um, Houston and Fort Bend. And I've been there, and this is my fifth year there. So,
I love it. Well, Anisa, one thing that I always love to start these conversations with whenever I'm interviewing an educator is to talk about your path into education, because I know there's two types of teachers. There's those who taught their stuffed animals and was like, I knew from the time I was in the womb I was going to be a teacher, and those who were like, that wasn't my path, but it ended up and I loved it. Like, what was your path, and when did you know teaching was for you?
I think mine was a happy medium. Uh, third grade, I moved from where we had lived and the elementary school I was part of, and we moved to a different elementary school. And for the first 2 weeks, I was in a regular class, and then the third week, they got all the new kids and they put us in one class of our own. So it was departmentalized, but we became self-contained with this one teacher called Miss Davis. And there were 20 of us. It was a kind of a smaller class, but she was the coolest teacher I'd ever met. She was super kind. I was like, I want to be like her. So third grade is when this was like, yeah, I want to be like her. I want to be, I want to help kids. I want to help them um, be better, help them be comfortable in their own skin, let them just understand who they are. And so she was super kind in doing that. And so that kind of started nudging me in the education path because I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then in sixth grade, I had a math teacher and Miss Lewis, and I didn't struggle tremendously, but I did have issues of just remembering certain things or comprehending certain things. So I came to tutorials with her, and that kind of just seeing her in her element one on one was also awesome. And just the project she would give us, we had the soda can project that we did with data, and I still remember it, and just different things with her. And so then I was like, yeah, middle school, that sounds cool. They're kind of crazy, but kind of cool. And math was became kind of a passion in that grade. By the end of the sixth grade year, I was helping with tutorials rather than in tutorials. And so what's funny is my education path is third grade and sixth grade. And so I thought that was kind of a great callback to them.
That is, I didn't even realize that till you were telling the story. I was like, that's so cool. These two grade levels that were so instrumental in not only your own self identity, but also in, realizing you wanted to be a teacher in math. Then those are the grade levels you ended up doing. Well, Anisa, I've been following you on social media for a while. I love the things you share. And I love how you love to bring so much creativity and fun and lightness and laughter into your classroom. Has that always been the case, or is that kind of something you grew into?
Oh no, that's always been the case. People ever since I was in high school and people saw math as this crazy thing. I knew that I wanted to change the perception of math because they're not scared of the content. They're scared of that fear it brings them, this of being wrong. And I
Yeah.
wanted to show them that no, you don't have to have a classroom that's boring and just lectures all the time and notes all the time. We can make it fun. We can do different things to bring that by. And then I have a sarcastic sense of humor. So third graders, I only had a few that would pick up on it, and that's also when I realized that okay, like my humor and their humor is not gelling very well. It would totally go past some of them. So middle school was kind of the early ones. Sixth graders kind of get it a little bit more. Seventh graders are
Mhm.
terrifying. They're weird and hormonal and all over the place. But I feel like sixth graders is a good fit because they're still like nice enough in sixth grade because
Uh-huh.
they're coming from fifth grade. They're a little bit scared because they're like new kids. And so by the end of sixth grade, it's really cool to see them blossom. But it's always been we need to have color, we need to have energy, we need to have
Mhm.
drama, like in the positive sense, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to be able to be yourself and who you are in my classroom. Like there's no putting somebody down. Like we
Mhm.
have quick conversations about that. Um, so that's always been part of my culture in my classes to
I
bring that
love
in.
that. Well, Anissa, you also mentioned that you have had some teaching experience at three different types of school. You said a Muslim school, you said a charter school, and a public school. And so I love that you bring all of that different perspectives because I know they're each a little bit unique in their own
Mhm.
way. And so, what do you feel like that kind of has given you as a benefit as a teacher to have those three different experiences?
Yeah, for sure. At the private school, it was a lot like parent oriented.
Hmm.
And it was still kind of new, so they were kind of getting their footing. I was able to have a little bit more freedom in what I wanted. Like, we didn't have a lot of the paperwork that we do in
Right.
a public school, like the 504 and the SPED and like every other document and acronym under the sun. Like, I didn't know what any of that was until I came to a public school because the charter and the private, they were as oriented towards
Mhm.
that. The charter
Yeah.
could come, there was a lottery system, so you kind of picked and choose who you really wanted.
Mhm.
And if they weren't a great fit, it was, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
bye. Private school, same thing. If it wasn't like kind of working, they could always go to the public. But public, you're literally accepting everyone, which is great.
Mhm.
Like you see a whole diverse crew
Yeah.
of people, and it's amazing. But it is a lot more work, I think, in that
Yeah.
aspect where you have to keep that in mind, which is a great practice as an educator anyway, is to
Mhm.
teach towards all those learners, which I think I gained way more as a public school teacher.
Yeah, I love that. But I love that you've got to have those experiences. I feel like it gives you just a much, not only more appreciation for what you're doing, but also a deeper
Oh, for
understanding
sure.
of the different varieties that are out there. So if you ever change your mind, you kind of know what you're getting into when you jump into any
Oh,
of
for
those.
sure.
And so, you also were part of my Celebrate Your Story event, and you led a session with a friend of yours called Don't Let the Hijab Fool You. And I will tell you, with the responses afterwards of the survey I sent out, it was the most popular session at the
Oh,
conference. And
thank you.
honestly, it was my favorite, not only because y'all were so funny and real and honest, but I learned so much. And so, talk to me a little bit about your own kind of personal path, because I know, if people are listening right now, they're not going to hear you wearing a hijab, but I know
Right.
you wear one every day. And so, what
Yes.
was your path into that? Um, and when you started wearing one?
So my path was kind of a little bit off the rails a little bit. Just going back to the conference, I did want to like me and Nitha made it a point to have humor be part of it
Mhm.
because the stuff you see on media is very like, oh my gosh, they're scary and they're only wearing the black scarves and like they always have this sad expression, and I'm like, that is the opposite of who both of us are. So we kind of wanted to bring that in, and then hopefully when people are listening to this today, they can realize that yeah, okay, people in hijab or Muslims are not terrifying.
Mhm.
So my story, I started December of senior year of high school. My sister and my brother had a falling out for something, and my older sister, and my brother was on my sister's case that she should start the scarf, and she was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not starting it." Now remember, I was going to A&M the next year, and he lives in College Station, so I would be living with him, and I am a rule follower, like
Uh-huh.
even to this day, all of my coworkers are like, Anisa, it's fine, just let it go. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I was told to do this, so I have to do this. Like, it is a problem in some aspects. So I'm a rule follower. And so he came thundering down the stairs. Like, we had this banner staircase, and he, like, held onto the rails and, like, thundered down. And he was like, you, hijab, tomorrow. I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? I don't even know. Like, I don't even have scarves. Like, I just stitched all of these clothes because we lived in our family back home is in Kenya, and they, stitch cultural clothes, and that's what I wear around the house when I'm not teaching or whatever. And they were all short sleeve, and I'm like, what do I do? I look at my mom and dad. They're not really meeting my eyes because he's the eldest, in the house. We kind of follow what he wants, and I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
So that started it. I had been wanting to start in first year of college anyway. Like that had always been an idea for me to kind of build that relationship. And it's more of a reminder. The hijab is a reminder that hey, like you need to be a good Muslim. You need to pray. You need to, keep God in mind at all times. And so I had been planning to start in August anyway, but I just started like it was really weird because I had gone winter break without one, and then I came back from winter break with one. My friends were looking at me like, "Are you okay?" Like, and so I just said, I didn't want to put my brother under too much, but then I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." I just started, and it was really bad hijabs. Like the ones that are Muslim out there, they all know the three triangle scarf. Like that's the generic scarf everyone starts wearing with like this big lace on the edges, and it was three colors only, and so you just kind of dealt with it. And then I had this like jacket I'd wear all the time, this like zip up hoodie that clashed with everything. So I was a walking hot mess express for 6 months. It was
I
great.
love that so much. I just love, like, I love hearing you share because you're just so real and honest about it. Like, it's like, this is just this. There are parts that I liked, the parts that I didn't, and this is what happened. And one thing that you shared too is you love color,
Yes.
you love showing your personality, and so all of your scarves are different colors, designs. And I always love when you post things on Instagram because I'm like, I wonder which one she's wearing today. And so, when did you finally reach that point where you're like, I'm going to show my personality through this?
Yeah. So my brother, I have three siblings. So my second oldest brother, he actually got married that summer before college. And so we all went back to Kenya, and it was almost a surprise trip. Like I was gonna go anyway for another wedding, but his wedding kind of happened. We're like, let's just all do it at the same time. So I was there, and we were getting long sleeve outfits stitched for me. And then my uncle, who passed away, but my uncle at that time, he's my mom's brother. He's the most giving person like I ever knew.
Right.
If you even say something, like you'll have a big bag of it the next day. Like if you like candy, you'll have a whole bag of chocolate
Uh-huh.
the next day. Like that's just who he was. And so I was talking to somebody about like how I wish I had scarves to match. Because I've always been kind of, when I was wearing my clothes earlier, like I would always have earrings to match my
Mhm.
outfits. And like from Claire's and icing and all of that stuff, I would have earrings to match or jewelry to match. So I needed, since I wasn't wearing earrings as much anymore, I needed scarves to match. And so I was just mentioning it to a cousin, and my uncle overheard, and he bought me this big bag full of
Aw.
colorful scarves. I know, and like I don't have a lot of them anymore because they're a little bit. The style isn't what I wear anymore, but it
Yeah.
was a long time ago. But that's where it was like, okay, I can make it work. I can make the colors go together. I can find a way to still be creative and still be colorful and still be true to who I am. And if somebody doesn't like it, that's their problem because there are people that are a little bit more um, restrained in the religion and all of that stuff, and they'll say certain things. But my mom doesn't complain. My mom understands. My family is fine with it. I'm fine with it, and it's my relationship with God in the end. And so I think that's always been key is to stay true to myself, and that's always been color for me, color and patterns.
And I love it. Like I said, I love getting on Instagram and wondering which one you're going to be wearing today
Hey,
because they're so fun and they just you can tell you love wearing them that way. So I love seeing that.
I
But
do.
Anissa, you also mentioned when we were at the conference, there were two things that you said that really stuck with me. One was a funny one. You were like, because y'all shared some stuff at the end. You were like, hey, we're going to answer some questions for y'all that we know you're probably thinking. And you were like, one of them is, yes, I have hair underneath here. This does not mean that I am bald. But the other thing that you said that really stuck with me is you said, I really want people to know that people wear hijabs for all kinds of reasons, and it's not always dealing with, and just because they choose not to wear one doesn't mean they're less of a Muslim and things like that, right? And I think I may have lost you. So I'm going to stall while we see if you get back on. And so for those of you listening, this was, I met Anisa when she was at that conference, and it was one of the coolest experiences ever because I love following her online, and she does amazing work on social media, and it's just always so uplifting and encouraging that I couldn't get enough of just learning from her and listening to her. And it's funny because when I asked her to come on this podcast, she was like, "Oh no, I gotta be like, you already made me step outside my comfort zone to do the tell your story." She was like, "I'm going to be so nervous." But as you can tell, she speaks so well. And I love hearing the things that she shares. And so, I think she's back. Let's see. She's back. There we go. Oh, and we lost her again. Okay, so anyway, what I really wanted to bring her on is I love hearing all these different varieties of stories because I think it's such a great reminder that there's so many things that unite us instead of tear us apart. And so I love her just being able to share with honesty, with humor, with vulnerability. And so let me see if I can get her in now. And she is here. Okay, I think we're good now.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm so sorry.
you are not the first person this has happened to. So
Okay.
I just sit here and stall until you log back on.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I
I'll
don't
have to go back and listen to make sure you didn't say any like terrible things.
It was all kinds of course, because I love you. And so, I was sharing that at Tell Your Story. There were several things that you mentioned that at the end, y'all were talking about funny stuff. People ask, and you were like, yes, we have hair underneath here. We're not bald. But another thing you shared too was, just because a Muslim woman chooses not to wear a hijab, it doesn't make her any less of a Muslim. It's a personal choice. And people who wear them aren't all, there's all these things. And so I love that you shared that because I think people, like you said earlier, can sometimes just believe what they hear on the news or what they've read about in an article. And it's like there's so much variety in a scarf and hijab and why you wear it and who wears it.
Yeah. I even have friends that took it off just because they felt like they weren't being true to it. And there's no judgment involved on my part, but unfortunately, culturally, there's a lot of judgment and like Islamically and like the circles or whatever, there's a lot of judgment that passes. But I feel like at the end of the day, that's a relationship between who you are and who your God is, no matter what religion, no matter whatever. And I feel like everybody has their own relationship. Everybody has their own perspective,
Right.
Everybody has their own story, like you say all the time. Everybody has their own story of how they worship, who they worship, what stories are involved, everything with that. And I feel like we don't have any right to say anything. I had multiple friends. They wear hijab now, but they were praying way more than I was. They were more knowledgeable in the content than I was. I still struggle remembering details about Islam and stuff, just because there's a lot out there. I'm not a perfect Muslim just because I have a scarf on. Far from it. This is one step I can take that helps me put myself on a better path. That's it.
And I have a question too that I wonder about, and that is, you always have the scarf on when you're in public, and that's your decision to do that, and I know that could probably lead to comments being made or stares or uncomfortable situations. How do you handle that? Because it's such a visible thing that it's not like you can hide from it. And there's so many judgmental people who will make comments or have stares or anything like that. How do you not let any of that get to you?
Lots of smiling, I think. I do every once in a while. I'm glad I live in Houston, which is very diverse, and they have this big population anyway. I remember one of the biggest times I got stares was I had to go to the airport, and I had like a 3-hour layover or whatever, and I had to pray. And trying to find like a decent spot in an airport after 9/11 is one of the most terrifying things I've ever had to do. Because I was like, oh God, what if somebody like takes my suitcase, or what if somebody like freaks out and calls security on me, or whatever it may be. But the people, like the airline crew, are really nice about it. I just play kind of in a area that, it's fine. There are some stairs, but I just smile at them and I wave.
Right.
Every once in a while, like if I'm in line at the Starbucks or the coffee thing, I'll just pay for the person behind me just in case. Like spread some good into the
Yeah.
world, some good karma in case there was some bad karma coming my way. I'm just gonna like turn that around. Just little things here and there where like a nice comment to somebody, oh, those are great shoes, or whatever it may be. Just keep spreading the good into the world and trying not to let the bad get to me. That's
Well,
all I can do.
and I love that, and that's such a beautiful sentiment because I think of what it's like to be Islamic and have those things and the kind of stories that have been said about Muslim people and how they are, and I'm like, you could think about that with any religion or any
Mm-hmm.
group of people. I can find a crazy in there. I can
Oh
find
yeah,
somebody who's going to make us all look bad, who follow that belief system or who do this or that. It's like, and so I love that's why I think like stories like this are so important to be told for people to see that there are more that bring us together than brings us apart. And I know also
yes,
right now today is the first day of Ramadan, and we
it
were not
is.
we did not plan it like this, but I was so
It
excited because
is.
I wanted to say, could you share with everybody kind of what Ramadan is and
Yeah.
why today is the first day?
So it's the ninth month of the lunar calendar. Muslims go by a lunar calendar. It's the month of Ramadan. And so Ramadan was done as a way to understand kind of the plight of the homeless, the plight of like the desert wanderers in that time, in Prophet Muhammad's time. It's just understanding those who don't have enough. It's understanding what they go through. That's the whole point. It's to build a relationship closer to God in this time. So we use this time to pray a whole lot more, to read our Quran a whole lot more, to make du'as, which is prayers, a whole lot more. This is the time to kind of give. So wherever you can, you're giving donations, you're giving whatever more you can. It gets multiplied. Just different things like that. It's just a way to kind of it's a restart, right? It's a restart of who you are and who you want to be and how you want to set the tone
I love
for kind of your year and like for another year until Ramadan comes back. And so you create all of these habits, or you try to, and you want to bring them into the rest of the year. And so that's what Ramadan is for me and for us. That's We all look forward to it. Muslims everywhere, we look forward to it. Um, Especially if we're privileged enough to be able to look forward to it. Like
right.
there are people struggling, right, in Syria and stuff like that, that probably don't have as much as they could, but they still make the most of it. And it's beautiful to see those images and hear those stories coming out from countries that don't have privilege like we do. And it's gonna be really weird right now because you're supposed to go to the masjid, and
I was gonna say because like other religious holidays, you gather and you do things
yeah,
I know that we can't right now, and so
oh
that probably
yeah,
completely changes the way you are looking at and thinking about this holiday as well.
oh for sure. You would have every week, you'd have a couple nights that you're at another person's house, and you're having iftar, which is the meal you use to break your fast. You're having iftar over there. And so it's going to be really weird this year. We've already started talking about Zoom iftars and just kind of
Mhm.
like at least doing something. A lot of the religious organizations, they've done prayers online. They're going to do lectures online for free, just to make sure that people have availability. Oh, and quick, for those that didn't know what Ramadan is, you're not eating or drinking from sunrise to sunset.
Ah.
And it's Houston, it's from about 5:30 in the morning until 8 p.m. at night.
So you don't eat from 5:30 in the morning until 8 p.m. at night?
Nope, no eating or drinking. So water is not allowed either.
Wow. And then so I guess when 8 o'clock hits, you're like, okay, let's have a meal.
Yes, yes. We all sit together and you break it with a date, because that's like it's filled with dense nutrients and stuff, and there's a lot of date palms in the desert, and so you break it with a date first, and then you have your meal.
So how long does Ramadan take place?
It's about 30 days.
30
Because it's
days.
yeah, so it's 29 or 30 days, and Todd, we were talking earlier. It's like the moon wars. So there's
Mhm.
certain like factions of Muslims that follow a certain I don't even know what they're called in English, but they follow just a certain um, side or following.
Mhm.
And so, like, certain people follow the Pope, certain people follow a different church. It's
Yeah.
similar to that, but kind of nationwide. And so, last night we were talking about it and we're like, God, okay, are we going to start tomorrow? Are we not? Because scientists declared it based on moon and like how it all
Mhm.
works. And they're like, yeah, scientists, it's this day. That's why it's printed on calendars already,
Mhm.
all that stuff. But we have to see the moon. We have to see the new moon, that little sliver, and only then can we start Ramadan. And so they saw it in San Diego, of all places, and they're like, yeah, let's start. It's tomorrow. So this is the first time in a while where both factions have kind of started on the same day.
Yeah, because I know, like you said before we went live, you and I were talking about it, and I was like,
Yeah.
today is Ramadan, right? Because I know there's some kind of moon thing, but on the calendar it says it's today. And you were like, yes, they saw it at 10 o'clock last night, so we decided to start today. So I
Yeah.
thought that was so interesting. Like, all this learning I just consume it because it's so cool to me because I didn't grow up with this stuff. So learning about it now is awesome. Well, Anisa, one way that I always love to end all my tell your story conversations is, I believe as people, there are things we hold really close to our hearts that we really believe with all that we are. And so for people who are listening or watching today, if there was one thing that you hope they walk away with, what is your one thing?
Be true to you. My truth was always like hold your truth with a firm grasp, whatever that may be. My truth was um like my personality, right? My humor and my color and all of that. That's my truth. That's who I am. So I bring that wherever I go. I bring that to my classroom. I bring that to staff meetings. I bring that to my coworkers. I bring that to my friends groups. I bring that to Instagram. I just bring that wherever I go because that's who I am, and I'm not afraid to hide from that.
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, I think you do such great work. I was so excited
Thanks.
when you jumped off. What I was saying was, I said, I said, she is brilliant. I had to really convince her to present it, tell your story. And I said that I had to really work to get her on camera because these kind of things make her incredible. And you did so good. So
Oh,
thank you so
thank
much for
you.
being my guest today.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get it, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Anisa has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story because every story matters.